Hello and welcome to the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I'm a playwright, screenwriter and podcaster from South Wales, and seeing as March is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, to mark it, I've decided to interview interesting people who have cerebral palsy from Wales and beyond every day in March. If you like this episode, please stay tuned for more throughout the month and like and share. Now enjoy this episode of the Palsy Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Palsy Podcast. I am not your host, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I am Liv Woodward, and this is the last episode of the podcast. And I believe you've saved the best host until, the best guest until last. Joining us today is Ciaran Fitzgerald. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hi Liv, this is a bit weird, isn't it?
Surprise! I know, it's like the tables have turned.
They have, and now I'm gonna find out what it was like for you a couple of weeks ago. Have you not really
I'm sweating. That's why I've worn gym gear today. I'm very nervous. So obviously this is the last episode, and we'll get into bits about the podcast and what that was like. I'm like a bit late, but basically, like I said to you a minute ago, I'm just going to start off by basically blowing smoke up your ass and explaining to people who might not know exactly who you are, but I'm assuming they do if they've not been living under a rock, a bit about who you are and what you've done. Now, obviously, you're a screenwriter and a playwright. You've worked with S4C. You're an RTS Cymru Amlet Award winner. Amlet with your pilot that was aired in 2023 with Octagon. Like you've been optioned by Rangaby for TV treatments, and you've also been optioned by Tiger Aspect. You have I've done radio, you've done TV, you've done obviously documentaries, you've done everything pretty much that anyone could do, especially within Wales as well, which is obviously incredible. You've been part of multiple schemes, like obviously the Explode programme, like the Sherman's Writers Group, and then obviously you've done WriteWild, which is where we met, and we'll get into that in a second. But basically, you have lived an incredible life up to date. Obviously, we're going, it's going to continue, obviously.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of give credit is due. I think you're incredible. I don't know how you do it. You're always doing something, which I always admire about you. There's always something going on, and especially this podcast. I didn't really know a lot about it coming into it when I was on the show, but it's an incredible achievement, and just well done for everything. But basically, what I wanted to ask you is how did this all come about? How did it how did you get started in the industry, and what made you want to work in the industry?
Well, I'd always enjoyed writing. I'd always written as a kid. I'd always written like short stories or sometimes poetry. And even like when I was playing with my toys and stuff as a really little kid, I would always like make up different stories and narratives with like action figures and stuff like that. So stories were always a big part of my life. I'd always kind of written and enjoyed writing, and even from a young age, I said, I want to be a writer, I want to be a writer. And at the start, I thought that was going to be journalism or something like that. Um, but when I was about 14, 15, I joined a youth theatre in Ammanford called Mess with the Mess. Now, I had been a part of the Rising Stars Youth Theatre, which is a youth theatre for young people and adults with additional needs. But Mess at Mass is a mainstream youth theatre, and they needed an actor with CP to play a part in a play that Dav James wrote. Dav James, who wrote Lost Boys and Fairies, which was on BBC Wales last year. So I was
Great
in that.
show.
I loved it.
Great show.
So I spoke to Dav and did that play. We did two tours of Wales, and I loved it. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be part of the creative industries.
And you were an actor in that.
I was an actor in that.
But you've done it all. You really have done it all, haven't
But
you?
then I always wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, when I was 17. Me and my mate Reese, who you've met, we co-wrote a play called Wheels, which was
Yep.
produced. The play version of it, which was the first play that I'd ever written, was produced for one night at the Ammanford Miners Theatre on Reese's 18th birthday, which is the day after my 18th birthday. And
Okay.
the play version of it was the first thing I'd ever written. One draft, bang, bang, and done on
One
stage.
draft.
One draft, because I thought it was the best thing ever. But like at that age, you do live,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But to see it on stage, to see it performed by my mates, just really made me think, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can have a career in this. I can be a writer. I can be in the theatre, film, and TV industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, that really inspired me to then go into uni and do what I'm doing now.
Obviously, you mentioned just off the back of that, obviously your like your own plays and stuff inspired you because obviously seeing that on
Mm.
stage was like a big like catalyst to make you want to be in this industry. But off the back of that, was there a specific kind of like program or play that inspired you when you watched it or you like heard it or whatever that made you go, wow, this is incredible and I want to do what that is?
I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch the story of Tracy Beaker on CBBC.
Yeah,
And there was an actor in that who's now my friend called Carla Riedel, who
yeah,
had CP. And, me and Carla know each other really well by now.
yeah,
But like seeing Carla in that show and saying, oh, she looks like me, she walks like me.
yeah,
There's someone with CP on a mainstream TV show, which I loved at the time. That was a big thing for me for going, oh, I could do that. I
yeah.
could do that. There's someone who's seen that representation was really important for me, I think.
It's just knowing that it's possible, I think, in it when you see that.
Mm,
You know what, even just you saying that now, it's stuff that I even forget that when that was a thing, I remember watching it and going, "Oh, that's like me," but I didn't think too much of it.
mm,
I don't think, but when you obviously look back and you think, oh, "God, it's always been there, hasn't it?" It hasn't ever been shouted
mm.
about and stuff like that. Um, and when that leads me, like, excellently on to my next question is how important is disabled representation in TV and theatre? And when you write, are you trying to kind of sprinkle parts of your own personal experience within that? How important is that within the stuff that you write and stuff that you watch?
I think it's crucial because historically disabled people have been underrepresented or misrepresented in film, TV, and theatre. I think often we've seen stereotypes of disabled characters written by non-disabled writers, being inherently inspirational and like overcoming their disability, or like disability being a representation of being evil, stuff like Richard III or even Frankenstein and stuff like that. So what's important for me is to write well-rounded, flawed, disabled characters whose identity isn't just their disability. They're flawed, they're funny,
Yeah,
they make mistakes. And I don't think we've seen that. I think things are getting marginally better. We're seeing far more disabled actors in disabled roles. Seeing far more disabled talent on screen, and I think it's great that there's been a concerted push to increase that.
mhm,
In terms of on-screen talent, I think we still need more disabled writers having their work on stage and on screen. I think, it's improving with stuff like We Might Regret This on BBC. But yeah, what I want to do within my work is show kind of the disabled story matter, but at the same time, Liv,
yeah,
like I don't just want to write stories about disability. I think it's a really big part of my identity, a big part of who I am. But as well, I want to write about what it's like to be Welsh in 2026, what it's
yeah.
like to be, a man in my early 30s, having CP as part of my identity. It's not the whole thing.
Mm.
So I think there's a really diverse range of stuff that I can write about and do want to write about in the future.
I definitely relate a lot to that because I've been in a kind of pitch meetings and where I've pitched a story that isn't anything to do with disabilities, hasn't got any disabled characters
Mm,
in it, and they've gone, oh, but because you're writing it, can we not just sprinkle in? I'm like something.
mm,
I'm like, okay, okay. I remember there was one where I was pitched an idea and I've got epilepsy as well, and I was like, okay, fine, the other character can have epilepsy. There you go, we've done that. And but it's been very tick boxy, hasn't it? But I think now, I think there's more conversations been had. Not as many as there should be, but I think it's becoming, like you said, like gradually more open to wanting to make these kind of programs by writers, written by writers that aren't just completely about own personal experience and identity, because it pigeonholes writers. I think
mm.
that can be obviously really detrimental to creativity within
Yeah, I
like
think
the
so.
industry. It can become stagnant, and that's not what we want, obviously.
And I think there's a balance to be struck. I think we do need those stories about the lived experience of disability. We definitely do, but we also need
Yeah.
disabled characters in programs that have forgotten. We need
Yeah.
both, I
I
think.
watched I Swear last night, that won the BAFTA.
Mm.
Incredible film.
I really, yeah. Yeah.
Incredible film. And it was just great to kind of witness people actually pushing for people to actually learn more like
Mm.
about that disability or disabilities in general. And it really highlighted the level of um ignorance around
Yeah.
disability as such. I think that's just incredible.
I thought I Swear was fantastic. Yeah, I
Really well.
really enjoyed that.
Yeah, really good. A really good film. Anyway, bef before we get sidetracked onto the brilliance of I Swear, um, obviously you, um, and myself have taken part in many, many schemes within
Mm.
like TV and theatre. Um, can you tell me a bit about kind of um, like your experience on schemes, and how that process is?
I think as a writer, you've got to apply for anything that you think is going to advance your career and advance you in terms of your writing, because there are very few opportunities for writers. I think it's very difficult to get your work out there, to get your work on screen, get your work on stage. And Wild Child and WriteWild, you know, it was incredible for me to have that opportunity. I've benefited so much from it. I think that scheme did more to enhance my career than any other schemes that I've done since. It
Yeah.
was the first year that they run it, and I just saw an advert on Facebook or Instagram, I think, looking for writers from underrepresented backgrounds. So it was specifically looking for underrepresented writers. And there were a few details about the scheme, but it looked good in terms of development and trying to push more into the industry professionally.
Mhm.
I saw the deadline and I applied, just sent my application in. And there was a short list, and I got an email back. Brilliant, thank you. You've made the long list. Can you please send us the first draft of your play by this time next week? So what I had submitted was an idea for a play. So it was like a one-page idea of the play. So I have to write the first draft of this thing in a week.
That's
So
cool, Ollie. If like if um if like, Ollie is watching this, that is cruel. That is cruel.
but it was a learning experience,
Yeah.
I think, that part of it. And what the course gave me was really solid insight into how the industry worked.
Mhm.
Like I hadn't done much in terms of telly after that point, but you know this, Liv, because you did the course the
Well, I
year
was gonna say
I did.
our um our application was slightly more straightforward in that we just had to submit two 30-page scripts.
Okay.
And that was it. I suppose off the back of that, like schemes then, obviously in terms of applying to schemes, would you primarily kind of apply to the ones like that have that underrepresented background kind of slogan to the all?
I think it's really important that those schemes exist, and I benefited a lot from the Wild Child scheme. But I try and apply for anything. If I see anything that's looking for new
Yeah,
work, new plays, new work in TV, I go for it. Because the worst they can say is no. You've applied. You sent your stuff in, and if it's a no, you move on. You've got to apply for everything. Because I think opportunities within the industry at the moment, the way things are going, are very few and far between. I think it's much harder for work to get made. It's much harder to get things on stage or on telly because we've had COVID, because we've had writers' strike, because things aren't being made at the rate they were maybe 3 or 4 years ago. You've got to apply for everything. You've got to put your name out there. You've got to meet people, make connections, and contacts are so important as well. And that's one of the things that the Wild Child scheme gave me through being able to pitch to these production companies. Like you were saying on your episode, pitching to people like Tiger Aspect, people like Red, people like Grangaby, It was something I'd never done before, and I learned so much from that process. Because before that, primarily, I'd written for theatre. But the Right Wild, if I can pronounce that
yeah.
correctly, scheme really taught me in terms of crafting my work for TV, being able to pitch to these TV companies, which was a scary experience, but I'm really glad I did it, and it really benefited me.
In terms of just like a quick fire one, this is like a bit of a tough one, I suppose, but a hardcore one. Is enough been done in terms of schemes and in terms of inclusion, um in terms of actually reaching like underrepresented backgrounds or people who are from underrepresented backgrounds?
I don't think schemes are the problem, it's what happens after those schemes. I think schemes are brilliant and they should run and they're a great way of developing talent. But say you're a theatre, Liv. You're a theatre, you want to write your scheme for underrepresented writers. You've got 7 writers on the scheme, but you know you can probably only commission one of those plays. You're asking writers to write a play, maybe unpaid, maybe paid, I've had both. And then there's no guarantee of that work being in front of an audience at the end of it. And I know that financially theatre's in a difficult place. But I think the difficulty of getting work produced is a real problem. I think a lot of companies and theatres are doing really good jobs in terms of developing writers from underrepresented backgrounds. But I don't know whether that is translating to work on stage. I think there maybe should be a clearer route from the development schemes and the courses to having work produced. But I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, that kind of answers my other question I had on this, which was what would you do differently if you ran a scheme? But I suppose that kind of answers it, and just
I
having realistic outcomes and expectations for a scheme. And what I
mm,
think I think what's important from my point of view when I enter a scheme is that you want to get out of it what you put into it.
mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, and that's not always what people expect. I think people often expect it to be handed to them on a plate and you leave the scheme and you're gonna because I remember when I was on
It doesn't
I was
work
at
like
uni and I
that.
was like, oh 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 I'm gonna get optioned by Tiger Aspects and I'm gonna leave uni early and I'm gonna be like a millionaire and on a yacht by the time I finish. And it's just not the case, is it? But
And even if you get options, there's no guarantee that that choice can get made.
yeah.
But for me, what Wild Child gave me, and the Sherman Writers Group, and Screenwriter Frank Brown, and all the schemes that were done, gave me contacts that I still use. People who I collaborate with, people who I've known, people who maybe I've gone on to work with and develop stuff with. But like
Mm,
before Wild Child, I didn't really have any contact in the industry in England. So getting those contacts from some English production companies was really helpful because as you know in this industry, Liz, so often it's about who you know rather than what you know. And having the opportunity to have an extract from my play performed at the Park Theatre in front of an audience. To have that evening showcase my work in London was also really beneficial to me. So I think there's good and bad in schemes, and I would still encourage writers to apply for them, definitely.
Absolutely. And now just like our final question on schemes. Obviously, if I'm right in thinking, you were the only one in your cohort of WriteWild to like receive an option. Is that right? You were the only one,
Yeah,
which I
I
remember.
think so. At the time, like obviously all the other brilliant writers were
Yeah,
on this game. Tabby, Flo, Chantal, Hi,
who have gone on to do great
Julie
things.
have gone on to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
some
yeah.
really amazing things since.
Again, shout out to Tabby because we did that in my episode, but great.
But yeah, so we had the opportunity to pitch to different production companies, and I pitched to Tiger, my comedy series, the special ones, which is about a pan disability football team. I play for a pan disability football team, and I had the opportunity to develop it for a year with Tiger, which was a really interesting process because this was before Bump.
Mm.
So it's the first TV development I'd ever had, and rigorous sets of notes and rewrites and rewrites and redrafts. Um, I learned a lot in terms of structure of a TV pilot and of a TV comedy specifically in terms of the rate of jokes and structure and character development. But I learned a lot through that year of having meetings with Tiger and going back and forth with different drafts. And even though it didn't get made, we got quite close with, I think, the BBC and Channel 4. But I learned a lot, and I think it really improved me as a writer. Because in theatre, which I'd mainly written up until that point, you can rely more on dialogue. You've got time on stage, which is what I love. I love writing dialogue. But that time in Tiger taught me, okay, what is the action of the scene? What happens? Where's the joke? Where's the in and where's the out? Like being really snappy with it and quick. And that sharpened up my telewriting, I think, for some stuff we might be able to talk about later in this episode.
Um, Obviously, if we could just backtrack for a second on that.
Mm.
Obviously, you mentioned it was a year-long process.
Yeah.
Obviously, for any new writers that are watching this, what's that process like? How did it come about? Like I know that off the top of my head, you and like got in touch with Ollie's agent who runs the scheme,
Mm.
and is it Jess kind of helped you to sort of
Yeah.
um like get that over the line? What's the process of that at the very start? Were you contacted straight off the back of your pitch, or was it like you
So,
carried on conversations, or
so Ollie got in touch with me and told me that Tiger wanted to option the special ones. It might be worth saying what an option means at this point.
yeah,
An option doesn't mean, oh, they're gonna make it, cameras are rolling next week, let's go. It means that they have the option or first refusal to make that show for a period of time. So the option was for a year.
yeah,
So they had a year to develop the show with me and take it to broadcasters. So within the industry, you've got independent production companies who make programs, people like Tiger, Aspect, people like that, Octagon who made Bump, for example, there's a lot of them. And then your broadcasters, people like BBC, Channel 4, ITV, and then the streamers of like Sky, Amazon,
yeah,
Netflix, all that, Disney.
yeah.
So a production company takes an idea that they've optioned to a broadcaster and then they give them the money to make the program. So I worked with Target to develop a really solid draft of the pilot, which was fantastic. We had a writer's room where we had different writers contributing ideas, which was
And
great.
did you get to pick who was in the writers' room, or was it sort of a collaboration?
No, it was a collaborative thing. Tiger um, picked the writers, so we had Leila Navabi, we had Timorenko, we had got really couple of others, and it was really good to get other disabled writers in that room. But again, the collaborative nature of that process I learned a lot from because people were bringing different ideas to the script. And then after the writers' room, I wrote another draft, and then Tiger sent the pitch deck and the pilot script at the time out to people like the BBC and all the towns we mentioned. So it was a long process, and I was disappointed that, it didn't get made in the end. But I think what developed was a really strong script that maybe I will revisit at some point down the line, but just to learn of how that all works. Because you don't get told in university, like, oh, you don't just send the script to the BBC
Yeah.
and they'll go, we'll make it next week. There's a big long process involved, and for me to learn how that worked, that was really beneficial for me going forward into the stuff I've done since then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and then just a quick one to end this like section off. Have you got one tip like that you would give a new writer entering into an option process or a development process?
Oh.
I'm not for the first time. What would you give?
Don't raise your expectations too high like I did. It's like but enjoy the process of it. Enjoy the process more than the outcome. Because I think I've got the tendency to fantasize about, oh, this is gonna be on the telly one day. And great, it might be. Be excited, have dreams, but enjoy the process of
I
writing.
start looking at Rightmove and to have a look at what I can buy. But that's really good. I love that. I, I don't focus on the outcome too much and just enjoy the.
Mm.
That's really, it really hits home for that one. So that's really great. For the next part of the interview podcast, I'm going to ask some personal questions about
Oh.
uh, growing up with cerebral palsy. So how was that? How was school? How was growing up? Did you know much about cerebral palsy and like what was it like?
I didn't like. It's really interesting you asking me this because I've asked everyone else this, and I hadn't really thought about how I would answer it. But I slightly a lot of people have said primary school was easier than secondary, but I think the opposite. I think like primary school, I had a good group of friends. I went to a mainstream primary school, but I went to a Welsh medium primary school, and I didn't quite have the support that maybe I needed. So I had a TA, but the TA didn't speak Welsh. So at the age of like 4, 5, 6, I was having to translate everything to my TA from
Oh
Welsh into
wow,
English. So, because all the lessons apart from English were through the medium of Welsh, it was a Welsh
that's
medium
really
school.
interesting, though, isn't it? Because it's like that's insane actually to me, but
But having to do that
at such a
gave
young
me,
age as well, and not really knowing
yeah.
what and why, I suppose, would be the challenge with that, wouldn't it?
Well, what it gave me was a level of independence, of like academic independence, and so being I'm able to do the work I'm enjoying in school. I'm enjoying learning about these things. And like I was lucky to have a really good circle of friends in school. Like I remember at a very young age, like as every kid maybe does, I didn't realize I had CP. Like I thought. I'm gonna grow up. I loved football, still do. Always loved football and say, oh, I'm gonna play for Wales one day. And like, I didn't realize it was. I knew how to walk, and I knew I walked differently. Maybe you don't at that age, I suppose. And I think it was going to comp when I first kind of realized, oh, I'm disabled. It's a big school. It's harder to get around. We had these big prefabricated 3-story blocks in school.
Wow.
So having to go from the top of one all the way to the top of the other between lessons.
And was there lift and stuff, or were you
No
standing
lift,
there?
no lift.
Wow.
So I had to have a lot of stamina and energy in school.
And did you have a TA, which is like
I
teaching
I
different?
did.
No, was that? Okay.
Yeah, I had really good support in Slovenia in comprehensive school. Shout out to Mrs. McGurty if she's
Just okay.
listening. Yeah, and they really supported me when I went through a difficult time in school. Lucky that I did quite well academically and that I had a good circle of friends. But I really enjoyed school. I didn't do drama GCSE, but I should have done. But really enjoyed English, really enjoyed Welsh and history and things like that. And lucky that the friends that I made in Slovenia, people like Reese, Rebecca, are still really close friends now. And I think it's important. People have spoken about this on the podcast. Having that support network is really important. I was lucky that I didn't experience too much in terms of bullying. I know some people have, but having friends who really had my back for
Mm.
me was crucial. Oh,
I had a very similar experience. But because I think I mentioned this in my episode, but when I was there, I'm like we got the funding because I was at the school to get a lift that went up in one of the
mm.
blocks, only one floor, which they had two floors, so I could only go up halfway. And then if it was on the other
Oh.
floor, but luckily they were only on the I'm on I I I'm on the first floor, and then there was like a bridge between the two ones. So
Oh, right.
it was kind of all right, but then you obviously had to wait for people to activate a lift and stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, aside that, I suppose my other question would be like, because obviously I've experienced it, and I'm still kind of battling with it. Like now a bit, I suppose. But when you realised, like in school, that it was going to be a lot harder, like you mentioned, when you get older, you realised, oh, I'm disabled.
Yeah.
What was that realization like? Was it tough, or was it kind of,
I think it
or is
is
it still
hard.
evolving? Is it?
I think it is hard and it continues to be hard
Mhm.
because people don't really explain to you in full what CP is, what that lived experience is going to be because they can't. Because it's so diverse, so individualized. I think I fall into the trap. I don't know if you do this, Liv, of comparing myself to my non-disabled friends.
Mm.
Oh, um, Charlie's moved out, you know, Jamie's in a village, and someone says to drive, and I'm 30 and I'm still living with my parents. Like, and that can be really hard. But I think what I've got to realize is yes, I might be living with my parents, I might not be able to drive, I might not have the independence that I want at the moment. But I'm writing for TV, I'm being really successful in my career. I think it's really hard when you make those comparisons,
Mm.
but really trying to value who you are as an individual. And yes, things are hard, but remembering the valuable things that I'm doing and the important things that I'm doing have been really beneficial for me in terms of my own mental health in the last 2 years or so. I'd say it's been easier to kind of deal with that. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that
I
make
love that. I
sense?
love that. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. I feel like as well. I don't know if you like do this as well. I often kind of compare myself to people with other disabilities, and like so palsy.
Mm,
Like I often catch myself going like, oh well, this person's worse off than me, or I'm worse off than them, and that kind of language that I'm really trying to avoid now.
yeah.
'Cause that kind of comparison.
I
Yeah.
did it. I don't know if I should tell you this, but coming home from a big butt in the car with me, I was like, oh, Liv's so independent. Liv can do so much. She's done this all on her own. And Reese was like, no, Liv's different. Liv experiences it in a different way to you. Everyone's experience is different.
Yeah.
Just and but it's hard. It's
Yeah.
I think terms like mild and severe and moderate are sometimes not very helpful.
Yeah, because on my letters it says like mild. And then it's like,
Yeah.
well, what is that measuring system? Not like a jug. It's like, do you know what
Mm.
I mean? It's not like a Nando's spice level. It's it's
It's like,
real. It's like,
and it can be different every day, Liv. It can
absolutely.
like some days I've got the energy to do loads of work and loads of
If
stuff.
Pippa watching this now, I can't move
No, same, same. I
If the
hope they're
pit people
not.
are watching this, can't
Oh my
move.
God, can you imagine if they're watching all of these? How much trouble am I
Just
in?
what awful people.
But yeah, it just looks different on different days,
Yeah.
and I think I've got to give myself a break in terms of what I can do because I think I can do quite a lot.
Oh, exactly. That's what I've been working on at the minute because I've been in therapy
Mm,
like recently. And my therapist told me he because if I'm being hard on myself in terms of my disability or like epilepsy or whatever, it's like what would you tell like a child? Imagine you were your younger child now, your 6-year-old self. How would you tell them if they're crying and going, I'm in pain, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, and they're crying
yeah,
and they're upset? I mean, you wouldn't tell a child to grow up, would you, and get on with it? You'd say,
no,
oh, come here, let's have a hug, let's talk it out. Do you know what I mean? And it's giving yourself that space to recognize I am feeling like this, and it is pretty shit, but tomorrow might be a better day.
yeah.
And
And
that's
I also think like there've been occasions where I've tried to push on through and think, oh, I'll be all right, I'll manage, it'll be fine. I'll just go on this night out and I'll be able to work tomorrow. And then it's not been okay, or when I've not gone out and then felt bad for not going out. I think it's about giving yourself a break and thinking, no, you're doing this to protect your own physical and mental health.
yeah.
You're doing what's right for you and knowing your body better, I think.
Exactly. It's so hard to come to terms with, and it's like it's almost like I don't know if you felt it as well when you have to kind of when you're at like either it's a work event, social event, or some kind of if like if you're on location or whatever, and you're having a bad day. It's I found it or have found it the hardest kind of part of the
Mm,
experience ever to say, actually, I can't do that, and actually just
yeah,
say no to
it's
it because
hard.
an older version of me a few years ago would have kind of seen that as admitting defeat, but it isn't. But it isn't you've been defeated. It's recognizing your boundaries,
Yeah,
and it's like I remember my I'm like my friend would always say to me, look, if I was walking with a broken leg, you wouldn't tell me to like run a marathon tomorrow, would you?
yeah,
You'd say, oh my God, rest, like
yes,
chill
yes,
out, I'll look after you. Do you know what I mean? But like I said, it's having that great support system, and I recognize that that is a privilege in some cases,
absolutely.
and not everyone has that. But I mean, it's finding new people, and like with these schemes and stuff, and actually meeting you. This is
Mm,
from my point of view, and been on the Paralympic scheme, like I mentioned in my episode. Us having that kind of like the shared experience in a group of people is the most
it's
magical thing ever.
vital when you go, oh, you get that
You
too,
get it,
so
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
And
weird.
it's
It's
and
not
it's not a
just
competition
me.
either. It's not a
No.
competition, and no one's looking at you and going, "Oh God, I've got it worse than you, you lucky bitch." Do you know what I mean? It's like no
Yeah.
one's seeing that.
That's what's been so lovely about doing these is
Yeah.
meeting people with similar experiences, but also difference and learning from people. Learning, oh yeah, that's cool. I might use that. I might kind of take that bit of advice from you. And I've learned so much from different people, and it's such a diverse range of experiences within the CPA community, I think.
Off the back of that, that again leads me excellently into I'm into my next question is what are some of the highlights of doing this podcast that you've learned or you've not really
Oh
thought about?
man.
Or what are like a couple of things, maybe three things that you've really learned and you've thought, I'm going to take that on board and it's really going to sit with me.
Don't ask me to pick a favorite episode
I'm not asking you
because
to pick a
I
favorite episode. I'm picking like some highlights, like a mega mix,
good.
highlights reel.
I think seeing that people with CP are involved in so many different industries and things. Like we've had people studying PhDs, people within the creative industries, people like I didn't realize how many creatives there were with CP. We were actors, directors, YouTube, it was artists, like it's brilliant to see so many people in the creative industries and being creative and meeting different people and having these conversations and finding out about interesting projects that they're involved in or their life experience, but also people with doing completely different things to what I'm doing. Like Rebecca I've mentioned studying her PhD, like people within academia, people are doing so much in terms of raising awareness and things like that. It's just been the diversity of it and how generous people have been with their time, how open people have been to talk about their lived experience, often about things which may have been difficult, like bullying and difficulties with mental health. And sometimes people who have never met me before, never had a conversation with me, sat down and really saying some deeply personal things, which may really have a positive effect on maybe another person with CP who might be watching or listening to this. That openness has been what's made this such a special project, I think.
It's I mean, it's incredible. I mean, not to like kind of bring it up again, but it really is. I remember when you messaged me about it, and initially, I can't lie, to be completely honest, I was initially like, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel,
Why?
I feel like it's my own internalized ableism. It's me going,
Mm,
I can't be in a podcast like that because that's not just because I'm like what you said earlier. It's like I don't want to be reduced to that part of my identity,
mm.
but it wasn't about that. And then when I saw what you were actually doing, like it's it's an incredible, not to patch or anything, but it's an incredible like achievement
Thank
and
you.
the fact that you've done this for the whole month, I mean, you've caught the attention of like Scope, S4C you interviewed.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, was I lagging there?
a little bit, yeah.
Might come back. Hopefully the audio is all right. But yeah, you've been interviewed on S4C. You've like there's been like right for Scope. You've clearly reached a big audience. Do you know what I mean? And people, I feel like this kind of stuff matters. I
Mm.
I I didn't even know it was like the awareness month for CP until you
Mm.
told me, and I was like, oh, that's why you're doing it. I just thought you were doing like a little passion project, and I was like, that's
No.
cool. That honestly, it's been incredible, and I watched a few episodes as well. Um, and then
So
just
I was on holiday for the first week of March,
yeah.
so I had to record bulk like five of
Oh
these in the
wow.
last week of Feb before I went away, and then four when I was on holiday after like a full day of skiing.
Oh
So
wow.
like I was knackered recording episodes 5 through 9. But yeah, it's been hard, Liv. It's been, I'm not going to say it's been easy. Like, the interviews have been lovely. That part of it has not been hard.
Mhm.
But the difficulty has been all the admin around it, the scheduling, the writing the questions, which I've really enjoyed. But getting one up every day is hardcore. But I'm really proud of myself that
Yeah.
I've done it.
I
And
mean, you should be. It's incredible, and I'm just honored, honestly, that I've been able to be. I'm I'm a tiny part of it because I think it's honestly incredible. Um, but yeah, I was gonna just ask as the last question is what you ask everyone else is what is like a thing that you want people to know about cerebral palsy and what they don't already know.
that it's lifelong.
Yeah.
That adults with CPE exist and are living and thriving and working and who've got mates and are in relationships and are successful. But we need support. We need support in terms of physio, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, which on the NHS stops the people with CPE once they get to 18. Cerebral palsy is currently still recognized as a childhood condition. It needs to be recognized as a lifelong condition. There needs to be more support for people with CP. Places where we can go if we experience things like post-impairment syndrome, any deterioration in our conditions. More understanding from society in general. Like, if you're listening to this and you maybe know someone with CP, or maybe you don't know much about it. Think about how you can support disabled people and people with CP to live their best lives and thrive, succeed, and yeah, enjoy life. That's what I wanted to do, and hopefully I've gone a little way in achieving that this month.
I love that. All of that. I love. It's great. It's great. Well, thanks for. I mean, this is weird because it's your podcast, but I'm taking over today. But thanks for being on the podcast, Kieran. It's been great to talk to you.
Oh, Liv, thanks for stepping in and doing this again. I've really
Anytime.
enjoyed it.
And listen wherever you get your podcasts. That's what we always say, because I work in podcasts. That's what they always say at the end of every podcast.
Uh,
Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I don't know what I'll do this next year. I'm going to think about it. But for now, that's it from the Palsy Podcast. And thank you so much for listening all month. And keep your comments coming in because they really do mean a lot. But thank you.
Great.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I want to thank my guests for joining me, and I hope that you'll stay tuned for the next episode and more throughout March. Thank you.